All right, welcome. This is the Something Ventured podcast, the Yes All Women podcast. Rachel Fairbanks is back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Everyone loved your podcast.
Everyone.
Well, everyone I talked to, like the couple of people I talked to, thought it was pretty good. It was pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
It weren't very nice.
Well, we can get a little salty, and that's fine.
All right, let's do. Okay, so this is the Something Ventured podcast, in which I explore the reality behind the Silicon Valley headlines as I sit down with the people like Rachel who are shaping the way we view the world online and beyond. So this is kind of a more serious topic, right?
It's very serious.
Sexism in Silicon Valley.
Yes.
So I'm really not sure how to organize this, but I think I might have an idea. So first of all right, I'm going to set this up. You ready?
I'm ready.
So last time you kind of blew the bit. So the idea was at the beginning, I said, like, I'm going to pay you less than I pay everyone else.
All right.
And you were supposed to, like, start crying or something, and I'd say something, and then you'd be like, oh. We'd be like, oh, it's theater, like, it's a whole thing, but you kind of blew it.
But I called you on your shit.
Yeah, exactly. So I have an idea this time.
Okay.
Let's see if you can get this one and, like, not blow the bit this time.
Okay.
So later on, we'll talk about this Maven is my girlfriend thing. Right?
Right. Later.
Okay. But everything's true. The banana did not stick to the wall. But one of the things we'll say is that my girlfriend interrupts me.
That bitch.
Interrupts me when I'm working. Got it?
Got it.
All right, so we'll see how that goes later.
You're really setting me up.
So sexism in Silicon Valley. So I did a podcast with Michael White, the attorney, on sexism in Silicon Valley, and apparently that didn't solve the problem.
No. Well, here we are again. We have 45 minutes to do so.
I thought that was going to totally solve it. And so since then, we've had the company Tinder, the company GitHub, the company Urban Airship. Like, all of these guys have had guys come out, like, either get accused of sexual assault or sexual harassment, which are obviously different, but, like, both of those. So I guess it's our task to figure out what the hell is going on. And so here, well, yeah.
So my question is this happening as a result of, is this coming to light because of everything else that's going on in the world? The Yes All Women that popped up? Or has this truly been going on for a long time?
Yeah. Well, okay, let's start with that. So I think we should look at this from the point of view of a white male.
Oh, dear.
Hang on.
One of those guys.
All right, hang on. I have a podcast. I'm a professional podcaster. We're going to take this right to the edge of the cliff. I'm going to walk it right to the edge of the cliff, and we're going to pivot and jette back. So if you were a white male in Silicon Valley, and if you don't commit acts of sexism, right, and no acts of sexism are committed against you, you kind of walk around with this point of view of like, well, you would care if you saw it, but you don't actually see it. So it's actually interesting when people say, this happened to me.
Right.
This is why I find the Yes All Women hashtag interesting.
Well, here's the problem with Silicon Valley.
Yes.
Number one, sexism in Silicon Valley, there's only like 10 women in Silicon Valley. So let's...
By the way, I should mention for people who are not canonically listening to our podcast, Rachel Fairbanks, a executive at a software company. We don't need to mention the software company, but executive in the tech industry.
There's only 10 people who really work in tech and are women. Let's be honest here.
Literally 10.
Well, figuratively 10.
Thank you. Oh, wow. Good use of, yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I don't literally use the word literally.
Right.
So there's not that many. So when it happens, I think it happens even more loudly,
right,
as opposed to in other industries where it might happen all the time. I mean, this is just an industry where there's not a lot of women.
Right. So explain what is the Yes All Women hashtag?
So the Yes All Women hashtag.
It's a hashtag on Twitter that's kind of alarming once I realized what it was.
Well, it actually arose out of the Elliot Rodgers situation in Santa Barbara, where he took a gun and went on a rampage in Santa Barbara because he was angry at women.
Oh, right.
And so, the Yes All Women hashtag rose out of that, which it actually started a really great conversation, and a conversation that's needed to happen. And it's really kind of funny because the Yes All Women has also sparked the male backlash. which is
Wait, what's the start with before we backlash? Let's
I know. So,
what's the yes all women
yes
hashtag?
all women basically means that every woman has had some sort of uncomfortable situation happen to her.
Yeah.
In one way or another, whether it's just walking down the street and having some douchebag tell me to smile,
Right.
or having an actual sexual assault. You know,
Right.
it's just every woman has had something happen to them.
That's what's surprising about that hashtag. That's where people would be like, I would see something like Southern California. So there'd be something on Twitter where someone would say, "Oh, this, I was at college, I got raped, whatever," and someone's like, "Hashtags it yes all women."
Yeah.
You're like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
Like that.
When they say all, they're not
Yeah.
taking that word loosely. It is all women.
Yeah.
Every woman has had something happen to her.
Yeah.
In some way or another.
That's pretty rough.
Well, as a result of this as well, in May when it happened, 55 colleges, I actually looked this up today, 55 colleges started investigating all these sexual assaults that were happening on campus that they weren't starting to investigate before then. So, like, what was going on?
Right.
You know, why did this happen? Why did it take this horrible instance for all these colleges to wake up?
Right. Well, and so in Silicon Valley, since I said, hey, let's do a sexism podcast, because clearly my first one with Michael White did not take and lead to the sexism-free Silicon Valley, I hope. The GitHub got in trouble for harassing somebody. I won't try to say the details of these because I'll get them wrong and I'll get sued in podcast court. But GitHub, somebody left GitHub because she was being harassed. Tinder, someone just left because she was being harassed. And by the way, so Tinder is what the hell is Tinder? It's a dating app.
Okay, so Tinder is hot or not, basically, for dating.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's swipe left, swipe right. It's the easiest dating thing ever. But I wouldn't even call it dating. It's a hookup site.
Yeah.
Whoever came up with this is a genius and also stupid.
Yeah, it's like a sub of Match.com. Mm-hmm. So this whole thing was some weird controversy where the two founders, but they weren't really founders, got into a fight about something, and the guy was harassing the woman. They're two co-founders, and one was harassing the other one. It's kind of crazy.
So what I heard was he was harassing her, and the fact that she was 24 came into play. Like the fact that she was 24 and a woman meant that nobody was going to take them seriously.
Okay.
So because she was in Silicon Valley, and who's going to take a 24-year-old woman seriously in Silicon Valley?
Right.
So,
yeah.
let alone a woman in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. And in the tech industry, actually. She was in LA. I read they had images of the texts back and forth between the two of them. They should not have harassed her. But holy crap. It was like if a couple of stone giraffes texted each other, that's what those texts were like. I'm not condoning what the guy did.
They probably dragged them straight out of Tinder. It was probably just the regular Tinder texts that happened between random people.
It was brutal. So and then just today, the Urban Airship guy, CEO, got accused, and there's harassing people at work, and then he just got accused of sexual assault, unrelated to work. So it's every day, every week, somebody in Silicon Valley is getting themselves in sexual harassment trouble.
Yeah.
It seems crazy to me.
It does. I mean, the number is alarming, but we also have to kind of take a step back and wonder, why is it all happening at once? But also, why didn't it happen before?
Yeah, why? Well,
maybe people feel more comfortable to come forward.
Is that what's going on?
I hope so.
So what goes on? If you're a woman executive in Silicon Valley, what is the scope of things that happen to someone in Silicon Valley who's a woman? What?
God, what isn't the scope of things that happen? Unfortunately, this is quite an industry that doesn't really understand how to treat women.
Right.
So they don't really do a very good job either way.
Right.
Either they go out of their way to try to appease women, or they just treat them like cattle. It's just a very strange industry. It's just not very female friendly.
Right. Is that true?
I think so.
I mean, you don't hear it. It seems like you don't hear it, and I don't follow it that closely, but I don't feel like I hear it in Hollywood. I'm sure it goes on all the time.
I think it just happens more prevalently, more readily there. And
like you don't hear like, oh, Steven Spielberg, whoever, like in this person.
I also think that in industries like that, they deal with women on a regular basis.
Right.
And so they know how to treat them because,
right.
I mean, I think it's really sad. Like, there shouldn't be a way to treat women and a way not to treat women, and knowing how to treat a woman and knowing not how to treat a woman, you know?
Right.
But at the same point, that's kind of the world we live in.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows how to treat women.
Right, but Silicon Valley, we have female executives, certainly, right? Sheryl Sandberg, we have Marissa Mayer at Yahoo. Like, they're in some positions of power.
Absolutely.
Most companies, including ours, try to hire women, would certainly treat them with respect. There's people who go beyond that and try to get women, girls to code earlier in their life. Like, there seems to be some positive energy around it, and yet you get this little bit of a drumbeat of what the heck's going on.
I think the women are put under more of a microscope, though, than the men.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know the family life of the male executives, but we know what's going on with Marissa Mayer and her kids. You know, like
right,
we know, we think, you know, we're talking about like, is she a good mom? It doesn't matter whether or not these guys are good dads, but is she a good mom? Or why isn't she a mom in certain cases?
Yeah, I had someone on the podcast. We were talking about libraries on the podcast last week, and before you laugh, it was good. It was interesting. But she worked at Amazon. She was Amazon's first librarian, and one of the things she talked about was she had a child when she was there, and she it wasn't clear that it was okay for her to bring that up, but the male executives would bring it up as like, hey, I'm this well-rounded guy with kids and whatever that was, and she was fairly uncomfortable.
It's a double standard, absolutely. I mean, it's really funny because I was just talking to someone about this today. The PepsiCo president of PepsiCo is a female. She's a woman, and she's really dynamic, and she's really interesting. And she talked about how women cannot have it all.
Yeah,
it's just not possible. And so she talked about going home and seeing her mother. She lives with her mother and her family. And her mother said she walked in the door.
She's the CEO of Pepsi. I think she's of Indian descent.
She's of Indian descent, and her mother lives with her. And she walked in the door after she had just been named CEO of Pepsi. And she walked in the door, and she's like, "I have big news." And her mother said, "We need milk."
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, I have big news." And she's like, "We need milk.
Right.
Go get milk."
Yeah.
She's like, "Once you walk in these doors, you are not, take off the crown."
Right.
We need milk.
Which the weirdest part of that story is that Pepsi actually has a crown that they give you.
Yeah.
It's super weird.
Isn't that funny?
The Pepsi crown.
She knew what she was talking about.
So we'll talk about a couple of examples, but what goes on in terms of harassment? Like, here's the thing that happened. And again, I'm joking about the perspective of like a white straight guy, but you walk around never being discriminated against. So you hear stories like, oh, I got someone came up to me on the street and asked if I wanted to go be a model somewhere. Like what goes on?
So that definitely goes on. You also have to deal with a lot of really stupid things that people say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably what you have to deal with in all sorts of, no matter what industry you're in. But you also have to deal with people just assuming that you're stupid.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that doesn't seem right. You heard it here first.
Well, you know, they just assume things about you. It's a very it's a very male dominated culture, and you know, you just kind of have to either try to find your niche or you have to sort of stay out of it.
Right. It just doesn't. Yeah, it is a mostly male culture, but it doesn't feel to me like it's a male dominated culture. In the same, if there's a couple guys in a room, right? Well, that guy's a software engineer. That guy's an investment banker. Like, who's the alpha male? Isn't it the banker, like the military? Pick any other industry but this one.
Yeah.
Okay, putting aside advertising, putting aside like a couple things. Right?
Okay, here's where I'm going to challenge you.
Yeah.
Does the tech industry really associate with a lot of other industries?
Okay, that's fair.
Right?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Like, I feel like it's a very sort of sheltered culture. A lot of times there's not a lot of going out into the world and, you know, hanging out with people in other sorts of walks of life.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a couple other advantages in the tech industry. Maybe something positive will come out of this at the end. We'll see. So, in addition to everything else, in the past couple of weeks, we had the Chicago issue, which was that they were having an award show in Chicago. I think it was something like our Crunchy Awards here, which are the awards that we give out to people who are, for different tech like achievements. And they had a party, and they sent around their little invite for the party, and it was like, this is a tech party for tech awards in Chicago, and there's a bunch of women with bikinis on like the cover, which isn't even what you would wear to a party for starters.
Do you remember the late 90s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The late 90s were amazing. Mm-hmm. But it was also a bunch of like ridiculous, unnecessary women in bikinis.
In the 90s?
The .com, like parties.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. The amount of ridiculous, unnecessary, like gratuitous, sexualized women that people would have and hire and bring to their parties during the late 90s. Amazing.
Really?
That's what they're hearkening to. They're hearkening to the .com ridiculousness, like where we had more money than sense.
Right.
And everybody was trying to outdo each other with their parties.
Right. So you think Chicago's just getting there? Is that what's going on?
Chicago is a special place.
I like Chicago.
I like Chicago a lot.
By the way, that's not a Chicago thing. That's the tech industry dudes who are running this one conference in Chicago.
It could have been anywhere. It could have been. It sounds like it could have been here. The fact that you say Chicago, it's just happened to have been in Chicago.
Yeah. No, it was like a tech conference. And then right on the heels of that, we had the Maven is my girlfriend thing. By the way, I think I saw them play in Portland in 1998. Maven is my girlfriend.
They're a really amazing garage rock band.
They're really good. So there are a few people at work talked about this, but I'll explain what they talked about, which is this guy from a software company puts up a slide at a conference where he's talking about a piece of software. The software is called Maven. And he says, Maven is my girlfriend, ... looks beautiful, complains a lot, demands my attention, interrupts me when I'm working.
You're really not supposed to put things like that up where people have smartphones and are going to be snapping photos that will last a lifetime.
And doesn't play well with my other friends, which doesn't even know what that means. Like, his girlfriend doesn't play with his other friends.
First of all,
his girlfriend, 12.
Whatever it is that you're trying to sell, I'm not buying. Because it doesn't sound attractive. It doesn't sound like something I would like. You're equating this thing to something that doesn't sound very positive.
Right.
Which is your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Regardless of who you're comparing it to or what you're comparing it to, it doesn't sound cool.
Well, it kind of sounds like a guy who doesn't have a girlfriend to me. Like a little bit. I don't know.
And I like the fact that he used basically what looks like a tampon
the whole thing's weird.
To show off his girlfriend.
And to be fair, the company, so a couple things. To be fair, the company, we should talk about the girlfriend test too that you've told me about. But
yes.
So the company immediately came out. The guy was an idiot. The company immediately came out and said, hey, clearly not what we think. This guy needs some talking to. We need to figure this out. So they kind of did the right thing.
Right. This wasn't going to just sit there for very long.
But it's still odd that like a 25 or 27-year-old human being, like presumably he was raised by other than wolves, right? Maybe has a sister, went to a college of some sort. Like what? How do you... But
he was sitting around with a bunch of his guy friends, and they all validated what he was putting on that slide.
Ooh, full disclosure, some of my best friends are guys.
Right.
FYI.
Yeah. Some of my best friends are guys as well.
Just so we don't get podcast trouble.
Right. Absolutely. But he was sitting around with a bunch of like-minded people, regardless.
And going, that's kind of funny. Like,
who said, that's okay, let's do that. And I don't think that it's very uncommon. Yeah, sadly.
That's why it's a little shocking to me that you can get that, and it's fine. A couple people at work were kind of saying these guys aren't really you don't want to go too far with these guys. Well, this guy's like ridiculous, but you want to make sure every time somebody makes a joke that you're not just completely knocking them down to the extent that at some point you just become, it's too much and they go underground. And
Right.
Like,
well, the problem with this is he didn't think about his audience at all. He never once thought about who was going to be receiving this information.
Right.
There's plenty of I God hope that there are some feminist-minded men in the audience.
Well, this is the thing I'm trying to say to you, that I think there's a lot of feminist-minded men.
I hope so.
Who I don't, but that's the little bubble I'm describing, which is that if you don't commit acts of sexism, and none are committed against you by definition, you kind of don't think it's as big a problem.
Right.
Right? Like that's why.
Right.
That's why I ask when I go, well, this guy, when you go, yes, that's why yes, all women is such a shocking thing. I think to a certain kind of guy who's like basically trying to be a good guy, is a good guy, and assumes most people are like him.
Yeah.
And like, well, if you're a woman, you don't get harassed that much. And then every woman you talk to is like, of course.
It's so lovely to hear that people are not, number one, when they say yes, all women, they don't feel offended. Like, oh my God, it's not me. No, it's not me. I'm like, if they're a man, it's not me. That's not the point. We're not trying to pick on men. Women are not trying to pick on the men. We're just trying to say, yes, this happens.
Yeah.
Yes, it happens to all of us. It happens. Maybe you don't do it. Great. Good for you.
Right. But I think that's to me the profound thing about that. It's a hashtag, so who the hell cares? But that is the profound thing, which is when someone says, "Oh, I was raped," and the hashtag's yes, all women. You're like, "Well, geez, that's like that's a relatively heavy thing."
That's extreme, but it's not as extreme, I'm sure, as you would probably imagine. But I read a really great article that was written by a guy in New York, and he said that basically we live in a rape culture. Stop men trying to be defensive every time we say anything about the yes all women hashtag. A lot of men were getting defensive about it. No, well, I'm not a rapist. Well, I'm not a rapist. Well, that doesn't matter.
Right.
Really, in the great scheme of things, great. You're not so you haven't done that yet.
Right.
And hopefully ever. Sorry. But that's not the point. The point isn't that we're not saying anything about men in yes all women. And we're not saying anything about men.
Right.
We're saying women live in a rape culture. We live in a rape culture. Whether or not it's happening to us every single day, it is happening to somebody every single day.
Right.
We live in a culture that is about rape. What can you do as one single human being to make women feel comfortable?
So Silicon Valley, rape culture.
Yep.
Wow. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every culture. I mean, Silicon Valley is San Jose. It is San Francisco. How many different... I feel very uncomfortable sometimes walking around in the tech industry in Soma, very, very uncomfortable.
Well, there's the thing. I work in Soma. I walk around in Soma.
Yeah.
And don't have the sense that it is a rape culture or that any woman would feel uncomfortable there. And that's why it's like a kind of a surprise. I mean... Am I super naive to be saying these things?
You just have to, okay, that's the thing. Just know that it happens.
Yeah.
And know that when you're walking down the street, for example, there's a couple of streets where if I'm walking at night, between like Townsend and Brannan, whatever, like is so sketchy.
Yeah.
That if I'm walking and you're the only person walking on my side of the street.
Yeah.
And you're walking like 10 feet behind me, I'll cross the street.
Really?
Regardless.
Right. And if you don't know San Francisco, that's Third Market, or where'd you say Third?
No, I mean like just anywhere down in Soma, like late at night, where it's super dark and it's all like office it's like all office buildings. And so like when there's nobody there who's working, there's nobody there. There should be nobody there.
Yeah.
So if I happen to be there, if I'm walking down the street, I hear somebody behind me, I will cross the street.
I mean, it doesn't seem right. Yeah.
That's the world we live in. I'm not stupid. Like I'll walk with my keys in my hand.
Right. That's just crazy. And if you know that part of town in San Francisco, that's sort of the center of
tech
of tech in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So that seems a little, I don't know. It's surprising me. You can tell from my tone that like I'm surprised and have been surprised. But that's why I thought it was like an important topic.
And I don't think that there's a lot of women that I know for a fact that whether or not they're worried about getting raped or getting mugged, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Either way, they feel compromised.
Yeah. Wow, it's a crazy tale.
You are a tall gentleman.
Yeah.
You will never have to worry about this.
No.
It's a different world for people like us.
It's a whole different San Francisco than everyone else knows.
It really is. I take pepper spray when I go out in North Beach. If I know I'm going to North Beach, I will take my pepper spray with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that's been noticeable to me in the press is this sort of drumbeat of, sexual assault, events at work, like becoming public. It just seems very unlikely, and yet all of a sudden it seems to be happening with a fair amount of regularity.
Which I think is good. I mean, not that it's happening, but that it's getting reported.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk in a second about what I had a couple notes to ask you about, but
I think that there's a trend. I mean, I think that ever since this whole thing happened in May, I think that women have become, sad to say, a little bit more empowered and feel a little bit less like they're going to put up with some of the bullshit that they've put up with.
Well, I guess I didn't catch that correlation, but you're right. It did kind of start happening after that guy.
It really did.
Because that guy was, okay, I will call him ridiculous, but of course he shot a bunch of people, so that would make you per se ridiculous. But wasn't it like they wouldn't return his calls it was something like...
No, it was very deep. He gave a lot of money to pickup artists. So he basically wanted to he got nothing out of it. So he gave all this money to these ridiculous outfits that basically teach you how to demean women, and nothing came of it because...
Wait, what's an outfit that teaches you to demean women?
So here we go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of outfits that there's RSD Nation, which is Real Social Dynamics.
What the hell is that? What?
So Tyler Durden, who is probably one of the 5 biggest douchebags in the world.
Oh, is there a top 5?
There's the top 5,
okay, so
and he's probably right up there. He started this thing called Real Social Dynamics, which is basically where he gets dating coaches, and I'm actually doing air quotes right now,
right.
Dating coaches who will teach these poor, sad saps of men how to pick up women.
Right.
And basically what they teach them to do is, it's quote unquote called the game.
Yeah.
Which is how to sleep with women.
Okay.
And how you sleep with women is by demeaning them and making them feel like they owe you.
Okay.
So he tried all this, apparently.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it didn't work. Because guess what? Women are smarter than that.
Right.
We can see through your bullshit.
Yeah.
So he got really upset and really angry, and that's part of the whole problem. Like, that was part of the whole reason that this Yes All Women hashtag popped up, was because he wanted one of us.
Yeah.
He wanted a girlfriend. He wanted somebody. He wanted anybody.
Right.
Right. So it was a pretty insane thing. So he was basically objectifying all of us women who were shutting him down, which is every woman in the world.
Yeah. Well, you can kind of see why.
Well, because women aren't stupid.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I saw something like MTV or something like that. It was a thing about skinheads. These guys are like, what are they? Nazi. They're young guys. Like, they think being a Nazi is cool. And they were interviewing these guys. They're at this party, like at some bar or something like that. And these guys, their heads are shaved and swastika and all that stuff. And they were just really totally puzzled. They were like, well, women don't show up at our parties. You're like, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
oh my God, you're a bunch of angry dudes.
And you're like, wow, this Nazi thing's going to fail, not because your ideology's, ridiculous and horrible, but you just can't find women who want to come to your
Because it's not a lot of fun to hang out there.
Yeah. But they were just, seems like genuinely hurt and puzzled. Like, we're skinheads. We got the swastika. Like, where's the...
Find another counterculture.
Yeah.
I don't know. The goths. The girls show up to the goths.
Yeah, go rebel against the light or something. But not
Aw, it's really sad when people are searching.
They were clearly very confused.
Aw, that's sad.
So, we should finish up with like what do you do if you're a guy? But we have to take a couple detours because I've been seeing it on TV.
Okay.
Rape culture. Louis C.K. What the hell is going on with Louis C.K.? The whole show, I don't understand it.
Oh, okay. We'll have to do a whole podcast about Louis C.K. So Louis C.K. is basically this whole entire season has been everything that will make you ever since the very beginning. It's basically watching a soul get born. You know, I mean, it's so uncomfortable. But he's all about making us feel and see the things that we don't want to feel and we don't want to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the stuff that's there anyway.
So Louis C.K., a comedian who does a TV show, in the TV show did a couple things. One, he does a really uncomfortable monologue where he talks about hitting women in it, which is a little bit rough. And then there's a scene that's like a forced, nothing happened, nothing comes of it, but it's like a non-consensual sex thing.
And it right there, single-handedly, he changed television.
Well,
because he said it happened. So what happened basically? Okay, so Pamela comes back to his place after a very failed date.
Yeah.
And she's difficult, but I like her a lot.
Yeah.
And he tries to, in the Louis C.K. way, put the moves on her, and it's fails miserably, but he tries a little too hard, you know, and to the point where she tells him that you can't even rape me, right? Like to some extent like that. And it was very uncomfortable, but at the same point, it was, but at the same point, it was like, this is what happens. That is exactly what happens. The fact of the matter is Louis C.K. has not given us anything this entire season that we don't experience as people in the world.
There's a couple things in there.
Well, but our lives are not as pretty as.
No, that's true.
A lot of people's lives are very ugly on the, and that's what Louis C.K. is trying to show us, that sometimes the coolest things in the world are not necessarily the most beautiful.
Yeah.
And whatever happens between Pamela and Louis is...
Look, I'm along for the ride. Like, I'm not going to stop watching Louis, but I haven't laughed in a while.
I know.
Louis C.K.
I really,
And there's some uncomfortable stuff.
There is very uncomfortable.
Okay, so before we've got a detour to Westeros. So, Game of Thrones.
Oh, God, okay.
Cersei,
it's been a while. It's been like 2 weeks, so I'm on the leftovers
Lord.
now.
So while this is going on, at the same time, one of the things that outrages Twitter is the Cersei, Jaime non-consensual sex scene in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
This is a brother and sister who sleep with each other.
Yeah.
Twitter got really upset about this because they had a sex scene where it was non-consensual, which seems to me to be somewhat a peculiar... If you've watched Game of Thrones,
right,
they should not have had non-consensual sex, or I guess the one who caused it shouldn't have caused it to happen. But the other thing on Game of Thrones that you shouldn't do, like everything, like you shouldn't kill people, you shouldn't bash them, like all the things.
My whole problem is Arya left the Hound to die. Man, let's just be honest here.
People are getting
That's
killed.
That's the worst thing.
I don't think anybody in Westeros.
I think the fact that there was non-consensual sex is the least of our problems on Game of Thrones.
And it was the guy who pushed the child out the window to his death. Like, so that this guy forces women to have sex with him is like the second worst thing about this guy. Like,
I'm pretty convinced that he's not the only person in this world who has done that. I mean,
I don't think there's many women in this world who have had consensual sex in their life. In this imaginary fantasy world that doesn't exist, that's a bunch of books and a TV show.
I'm gonna say Tyrion Lannister has had a lot of women, and I'm not sure all of them were really raring to go.
Yeah, no, I think aside from what's her name,
Shay.
Oh, I was thinking Daenerys, but right, she gets what she wants.
Shay was good to go.
Anyway, I was like of all the things that bothered you on Game of Thrones, people are like, I don't think she was really into it that You're like, well, yeah.
So my
fair
whole
enough.
problem really is the Arya Hound thing.
That was cold.
The Hound was pretty badass.
To be fair, the Hound was on her list the whole time. He knew what the list was. He was on it.
Yeah.
And in the end,
And no matter how 6'9" to 300 pounds you are,
yeah.
she's a little badass.
Yeah. So in any case, that was a little detour into Westeros. Obviously, none of the things that happen in Westeros are indicative of anything you should do, react to, care about, whatever. Well, so we should finish off with like what does a guy do in Silicon Valley? Like, if you care, like, what do you do? I heard an interesting talk by the Mythbusters guy. What's his name? Adam something.
Adam Savage.
That guy. Mm-hmm. His kids, his young boys. And he was talking about them finding the internet and kind of finding porn and that, and how he kind of takes them through that experience. And he, it was funny. He put it really well. He said something like, quite simply, the internet hates women. And then
true.
He corrected himself and said, it's not that the internet hates women. He's like, if the internet was a dude and you peeled back his head and you could look inside his head, the internet is a dude who has serious problems with women.
Yes.
Is Silicon Valley like a thing that has serious
Yes.
problems with women? Is
Yes.
that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, that's kind of a grim ending to a podcast.
Yes.
What? So what's
I'm
the
just
guy?
gonna say yes to everything. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is absolutely true. Well, if you think about the internet being basically a macrocosm of Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
that's what you get.
So is like,
Think about the things that are being created.
Yeah.
The things that are being created are not Tinder, things that are objectifying people. It's not things that are not objectifying women.
So what is the thing that fascinated me about doing this podcast and talking to you on this, that fascinates me, is just you think there's a small amount that goes on, and there seems to be a large amount that goes on. You think that there's minor things that happen, and there's major things that happen. Mm-hmm. And it's relatively easy, if you're someone like me, not to be involved. Like, it's not that you're distancing yourselves from it. You're just not touching it in any particular way. I just find that. And so if there's hundreds of thousands of guys who are like, I don't actually rate people. But beyond that, just saying, I don't know. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a very big problem with the socialization factor in Silicon Valley. I think that there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time with men.
Okay.
And don't socialize with women very much. And then therefore, when they are with them, don't really know how to treat them very well. So that is not necessarily, it's a very big overgeneralization.
Yeah.
And it's not everybody.
Right.
Granted.
Right.
But for a lot of the younger kids, a lot of the people coming up, I feel like a lot of them do spend a lot of time with men and don't really spend a lot of time with women.
Right.
Therefore, what they are seeing as women are what they see on the internet.
Yeah.
So they don't really spend time with actual human women. They spend a lot of time with the internet women.
Tell me about Smile.
Probably one of the biggest problems that we have, not the biggest problem, but one of the things that happens to me on a daily basis, and I know it happens to all of my friends, is men will tell me to smile. What? Come on, girl, you gotta smile. Come on, give me a smile. Why aren't you smiling? And here's the problem.
Yeah.
If I don't smile, I'm a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
If I do smile, I'm giving them an in.
Right.
It's a trap.
Really?
It's kind of like that Breakfast Club saying, if you don't, you're a prude. If you do, you're a slut.
Right. Wow.
So it's a trap. Like, if I don't, I'm a snob.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't look at them, if I don't pay attention to them, it's basically them trying to get an in with me. And if I give them a smile, that means I'm good to go.
Yeah. So is there an answer? I mean, it seems that there are things that happen, and I've done a racism podcast too. There's things that happen to women that would not happen to an African American. Like people would just be like, "Oh yeah, I can't say that."
Like an African American woman.
Or no, guy, or like race things that like, "Oh, I can't say that."
Right.
Like nobody would put up a slide saying, Maven is like a black person because this, that. Like, they'd be like, "That's so obviously inappropriate." So
this is the problem,
right? Like at some point, I'm shocked by the insidiousness of it. Maybe there's no answer.
Well, look at how far we've come with the gay culture. Look at how far we've come with race.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we've come not as far with race,
A lot longer to go. But
yeah.
But at least on the surface, people understand. Like, well, that's not. I can't do that. Like, that's not right. That's not acceptable.
Well, and that's a big problem too. I think that what they don't really realize is that a lot of the times they think that it's not a big deal or that they're joking. They can just kid around. Yeah. It's just a joke. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
No, you can't just kid like that anymore.
Yeah, I was preparing for a podcast on gay issues in Silicon Valley, and that's what they say the most. Is like you just hear stuff that's like, it's a joke. Like, oh, that's gay. Like, super not okay stuff.
But now all of a sudden, those are hate crimes.
Yeah.
But nothing that happen, things that happen to women aren't. Which great. I'm glad that we've come that far with the situation with the gay culture. But at the same point, the women, like, it's almost like we backtracked.
Yeah. I mean, that is what in talking to you on this topic and in watching this sort of, I don't call it a litany, but a pretty regular occurrence of somebody being in the news for doing something to women, either in the workplace or outside of the workplace. Yeah. Like that could be the case. Yeah.
I don't know. Did we fix it?
I don't know. Do we? Like, we can give everyone an answer. We can just end on like an awkward, like Louis C.K. Like, hey, it's worse than you think. It's rough, and it's not.
I'm going to offer men one sort of solution.
Yeah.
If you're with a woman, don't be an asshole. Don't say stupid things.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's really hard to do, though.
That's harsh.
It's hard for some people. Okay. Here's the thing. Don't make jokes. If you hear somebody, here's what you do. If you hear somebody doing something bad to a woman, either verbally or whatever, say something.
There you go.
Step up.
Maybe that's it.
That's it. And if you're that guy who's walking down the street behind a woman, recognize that she may feel awkward.
Yeah, right.
And understand that and recognize it and be like, I'm going to try my hardest to make you feel comfortable right now.
Yeah. And maybe that's like a relatively simple answer, which is that when giving the example of this software thing, when the guy put the thing up, like nobody really stood up and said,
right?
Not
That's
okay.
offensive.
And I had a friend who said that. Someone at the party, he was at a party somewhere, and someone used like this sort of the N-word talking about some other guy. And he left the party, and later on he's like, shouldn't have laughed. Should have just said, dude, like not okay. Like, maybe that's your answer. It's like, if you see something, and if you know what it is, and it's not okay, and it's your boss or whatever, like maybe
I think
just
we
say
have
something.
become apathetic. And by apathetic, not necessarily like we don't care. It's just that we won't say anything.
Yeah.
And we think that we're going to rock the boat. It's time to say something.
Yeah.
It's time to tell your friends to stop making those completely disgusting jokes about women.
Yeah.
It's time to step up and say, hey, you can't just be like that around people,
Because you can't.
No. Well, we haven't historically, but we really can't do it anymore.
Wow. I think that's right. I think this is good. I've come to, I don't know. I kind of came through this experience of reading these things that are happening in Silicon Valley, and so that doesn't quite seem right to me. And then talking to you about it and going, yeah, no, I guess there is a thing there. So,
and I think you have to stop thinking about the world at large. And I think not you, but the world. You need to think about what you as a person, one person can do.
Right.
We can't fix everybody. I can't fix everybody. I'm not going to try.
Right.
But I can tell you what I would do as a male.
Yeah.
Like if I were one single male, this is what I would do. This is what I can do. That's it. I can't change everybody. There's going to be dumb shits out there all the time.
Yeah.
But at the same point, if I'm around them, this is what I could do.
Yeah. All right. Have we done this thing?
We fixed it. It's all fixed.
I don't think it's all fixed.
It's fixed.
I don't know. It's an important topic, and obviously,
it's not. It's never over. But at the same point, it's really good to have a dialogue about it.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on and helping me start it.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me again.
This is you're fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been the Something Measure podcast with Rachel Fairbanks. Thank you so much. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.